Thank you, Louise, and thank you everyone for being here. If you can come on video, that'd be great. Nice to see people's faces. Yeah, so let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Jon Wilson. I'm a leadership, life and mental fitness coach based in Cambridge. I work with people worldwide in tech and creative sectors, and I've got a particular focus in green technology and sustainability. I've got a background in electronics and software. I've been here since '93, and over the last 20 years, I've worked through a series of startups. But these days, as Louise says, I'm fully focused on coaching. The topic I want to talk to you today about is mental fitness, and the way I define that is your ability to handle the challenges of life with positive instead of negative emotions without getting stressed or upset. And I want to do something a little different in this presentation. I wrote out my intentions beforehand on here on a bit of paper. First one is for me to put all my attention on you guys to be here and to be of service to you. The second thing I wrote is to be fully authentic, to model this system that I'm talking about. So I'll be talking about a system of mental fitness. And what I wrote beneath this is, don't get caught up in being perfect. Content is not king. So it would be my standard way of being to make sure that I got this absolutely perfect, that I got all the content exactly right, that I made sure the polls were in exactly the right place. And that would be how I would judge my performance afterwards. And I figured actually what is far more impactful to you and to be of service to you is if I just show up authentically and say, look, I don't normally do this. I don't normally come onto a Zoom call with, how many people do we have? 35 people, and give a presentation. There's a part of me that's like nervous and is like, I hope I don't mess it up. Nearly swore there. I hope I don't mess it up. I've got to do this right. There's a part of me that's like really excited to bring this work to you because I know the power of it. And I figure if I can model that throughout this presentation, if I can talk about what's going on for me, then that, not from a self-indulgent cathartic place, but from a way to show you what this system is about. So I just want to put that out there before we get going. Let me come to share my slides. At the heart of mental fitness are three mental muscles, metaphorical muscles that we need to build. I'll come on to those. So actually, to get started, to get a feel like we're in the same room, share in the chat, where are you in the world? What do you do to earn money? And what are you proud of since the start of the pandemic? So if you can just share that in the chat now. This is really more for your benefit, to feel like you're engaged, feel like you're in a room with other people rather than just sat behind your screen. I'll tell you mine as you're writing that. I'm in Cambridge. I do this to earn money. I coach people, I support people with their mental fitness. I used to write software, but nowadays I didn't put what's your job because I don't feel like this is my job, but it is what I do to earn money. So we'll make use of the chat, mainly for your benefit. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, prefix it with question in capitals. And then Louise, my wonderful assistant, will be looking through and curating the chat, and we'll break for a couple of points where we'll open it up for questions. And I won't pay too much attention to the chat, so Louise will do that for me, hopefully. Great. I kind of made the assumption that most people would be in Cambridge, but someone here from Edinburgh. I wonder who the furthest away is. Edinburgh's winning so far. Haverhill. Hull! Not quite as far as Edinburgh, but great. Barcelona, Joan, thanks for being here. I think you win. So. And right now I catch myself going like, like how am I looking? How am I? One of the things I'll be talking about, the ways we self-sabotage is like, I have to show up in a certain way. I have to look a certain way. What will people think? Oh. So definition. your capacity to respond to life's challenges with positive rather than negative mindset and emotions. And this impacts everything, in particular, our ability to perform at the highest level, in leadership roles, in our family life, in sports, whatever it is. Our peak performance comes from being mentally fit. Peace of mind and wellness, it's what we're all looking for. And healthy relationships, it's particularly powerful to build close, intimate relationships and to deal with conflict. I want to compare this to physical fitness. If you have a certain level of physical fitness, you can climb a certain height of hill. If you're a couch potato, maybe it's a struggle to climb the stairs. If you've got a reasonable level of fitness, you can go walking in the Peak District and it's not too difficult. If you're super fit, you can climb a mountain. And the mountain's not the problem. The mountain's not the problem. The problem is your level of fitness and your ability to climb it without getting out of breath, without suffering. And if I liken it to right now, for me, this is a hill that is just kind of a stretch. Like I'm going to get to the top of this hill, I'm going to be out of breath. But I think I can do it. But it's not quite a mountain for me. And the thing to take away here is that this is a system for all of us. We can all improve our mental fitness. It's wherever we are in life, and whatever our level of happiness and well-being, there's still room to improve, and this system is what allows us to do that. To give you an overview where we're going, so I'll give you a little bit of the history, the research behind this, and a simple example of how the system works, and then I'll take you through these 3 mental muscles that we need to build and summarize at the end. So these things, I guess they probably don't mean much to you at the moment. If you've done the assessment that was sent out, which it's not essential. If you have done it, maybe some of these terms will be familiar, but it's my job to tell you what they are. So a real world example that hopefully you can all relate to, if not exactly this, something similar. Say your boss asks you to work late. That might lead you to some emotions of judgment of your boss, maybe some resentment or anger. But you recognize that this probably isn't particularly helpful, that these emotions aren't going to be in your best long-term interest. So you recognize it, and maybe you step out, you take a few deep breaths, or maybe you go for a walk, you shake that energy out of you. And then with a clear head, perhaps you go back, and with genuine curiosity, you're asking, why does he or she feel you need to stay late? And you could creatively brainstorm other solutions. And maybe the boss gets what they want, and you get what you want. I'd like to take you through an experience of step 2. So in this system, there's a particular set of things we can do rather than just taking some conscious deep breaths. There's much more to it. So I'm just going to stop the share there for a moment. If you're willing, invite you to close your eyes. You don't need to. If you're willing, most people find it a little more effective. Bring all your attention, let your feet come to the floor if they're not already. Bring all your attention to the soles of your feet. Feel the pressure there, feel the floor pushing back up against your feet. Now, if any thoughts come into your mind, gently let them go. Bring all your attention to your toes, your beautiful toes. And if you need to wiggle them to feel them, just give them a little wiggle and feel each toe in turn. Again, if any thoughts come to mind, just gently let them go. Now bring your attention to where you're sitting on the seat, where your body meets the chair. Notice all the sensations of that. Temperature, pressure. Now bring your attention to your breathing. Don't try to change it, just notice as you breathe in and out, the rising and falling of your chest or stomach. Now bring your attention to the sounds in your environment and pick one of them and put all your attention on that sound. If it's quiet where you are, you could bring your attention to the sound of your own breath. Just notice the sound. Again, if any thoughts come to mind, just gently let them go. Now, open your eyes and find something in the room that just draws your attention. Something that has some interest to it, maybe a plant or something with a bit of texture and colour. And bring all your curiosity to what you're looking at. Look at the colours and the shades, the textures, the patterns. When you're ready, come back to the screen. And if we were looking at your brain under an fMRI scanner right now, we would see that the part of your brain that's associated with survival, the older part of your brain, has lessened in activity. And there's more activation in what we'll call your PQ brain. PQ meaning positive intelligence quotient. But the part of your brain that has more positive emotions and joy and empathy and love, you may just notice that you just feel a bit calmer. I do. Sorry, let me come back to the presentation. Just a little bit on the research behind this. This work comes from a guy called Shirzad Chamine. He's the guy behind positive intelligence and all the work that's been done there. I want to just share this just so that you know this isn't some like woo-woo California nonsense. This has got solid evidence behind it. There's a lot of research and it draws on positive psychology, neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and performance science, in particular sports performance, and some unique research done by positive intelligence themselves. The research includes results from hundreds of CEOs and their teams, Stanford students. Shirzad is a lecturer at Stanford, world-class athletes, and hundreds of thousands of participants around the world. And this is important because it's not just a culturally specific system. This is global, applies to all of us. And if you're interested, you can find out more, particularly about the research, if you're interested in that, in the book by Shirzad. What the research showed when they did a root cause analysis is that there are just these three muscles that we need to build: saboteur interceptor, sage, and self-command. So I want to introduce this word saboteur. These are the voices in us that come from our survival brain that are trying to keep us safe, but ultimately they're self-sabotaging. So the first one is first muscle is saboteur interceptor. This is our ability to spot when we get hijacked by those negative emotions, by that survival part of our brain. Where we would rather be is what we call sage. So that's when we can access our innate wisdom, and it's associated with emotions such as empathy and curiosity. And then self-command is our ability to switch from one to the other. So that exercise we just did helps you build the self-command muscle, and it helps you switch in a particular moment. If you feel hijacked by negative emotions, it helps you switch. So in this system, these muscles, you can build a habit to build them, and it's easy and straightforward. Lots of the other personal development systems, there's a lot of complexity to it. It can take a lot of time out of your day, and you're never quite sure where to focus and how to use it. there's a real simplicity in this system. The Stanford students call this Jedi mind training. It's this constant war between the fear part of our brain, of our inner Darth Vaders, and the positive emotions of our inner Jedis, such as clear, laser-focused action. But we can't use those words because of copyright, so we use the words saboteur and sage. The good news is there's only 10 ways we self-sabotage. There's the overall judge, which everyone has, and then there's 9 accomplices that I'll come on to. And there's 5 sage powers. So typically when we shift into sage, we start with empathy for ourselves and others, and then we can bring curiosity, a sense of meaning and purpose, innovation, and laser-focused action. So I think at that point, we will open up for any questions. And again, just to model it, this is the point where one of my saboteurs goes, oh, what if you don't have the answer? You know, what will they think? So let's see what we've got. Anything there for us, Louise? Any themes or anyone?
Not yet.
Okay. Anyone want to come live with a question? Brilliant. Oh, my saboteurs calm down.
Can't see anybody writing.
All right, great. So let me carry on.
Keep an eye on it.
Yeah, great. So yeah, the first muscle is our ability to intercept these inner Darth Vaders and stop them doing the damage that they do. So let's start with the master saboteur, the judge. We all have this. That's good to know. I missed 2 polls, didn't I, Louise? I missed 2 polls. Let's
just unmute myself. We've also got a question, so it's all happening.
Oh, okay, perfect. So let me.
What would you like to do first?
Let's do the polls. Let's do the first 2 polls.
Okay. We'll do the first one, which is physical fitness.
Yeah. So I'm interested to know how many times a week do you intentionally take action to improve your physical fitness? So it might just be going for a walk, it might be going to the gym, getting on your bike.
Okay, I have launched it. They are filling in the answers. I haven't got any takers for 8 times a week yet. Are we nearly there?
I do see Richard's question. Was the research uniquely an elite audience?
Yeah.
Honestly, not sure. I believe it was very broad. Certainly the hundreds of thousands of people around the world who've taken the assessment and contributed to the research who come from a very broad spectrum, not elite performers. The core research, that I'm not certain. I'm sure the answers are in the book. That would probably be the place to go.
Right, here is the results for you for the first poll. Hopefully you can see that.
Okay, great. So we've got, most of you are taking some action, with the highest there between 4 and 5 times a week. Great. So the second question is, how many times a week do you take action on your mental fitness? Do you do something intentional to build your mental fitness or to improve your mental health? These are anonymous, by the way, so feel free to be completely honest.
Okay, are we nearly there, everybody? Yeah, nearly there. Brilliant. Here we go.
Right, so we see that it's quite a bit lower than physical fitness. And I'm here to tell you that the beauty of this system is you can absolutely, just like you do with physical fitness, you can absolutely work on your mental fitness and improve it over time. So it's good to know, right, that we're not stuck with how we currently respond to challenges. We can improve it. Okay, great. Thank you. So let's go back. So the judge, we all have a judge. That's good to know. It's like a good normalizer to know that we all have this character in our heads, every single one of us. Maybe not if you're a sociopath, but otherwise you have a judge. And there's three ways in which the judge operates. The first is how it judges ourselves. So you might know this as the inner critic, the chimp. It's that voice in us that says things like, you idiot, you screwed up, you should have done better, or you're going to fail, it's all going to go wrong. And yeah, no, just good to know that. And I've got another poll here, which is the one reminded me we hadn't done the other two. And this is a poll that to say, how strong is that voice in you? Again, it's anonymous, if we could bring that up, Louise. But how strong is that inner critic voice in you? I haven't put 0 because, as I say, we all have it. So feel free to be completely honest here. Anonymous.
Okay, they are doing it.
And being authentic, I'd say mine used to be around about an 8, and it's now, having done a lot of this work, it's probably around about 5. Put that in. I get to take part.
Okay, they're getting there. Any last voters? Okie dokie. Right, here's the results.
Yeah, look at that.
About an 8.
Look at that, like 8s, 10s. You see how it changes as it gets, it starts growing at 5, 6, 7, and 8. So look, just if you take nothing else away, take that away, that you're not alone. That this is very, very common. Thank you, Louise. So let's come back to the other two modes in which your judge operates. So the other mode is that it judges others, that the judge will find what's wrong with them. Rather than looking for what's good, it will find like, oh, he's too ugly, she's too tall, he's not good enough. That judgment is a way that we self-sabotage. It's far better to see the good in people, but it's somewhat innate that we have this negativity bias and we judge others. The third way is often not that obvious. It's how the judge judges situations and events. It tells you can't be happy until something changes. For instance, when is this pandemic going to end? It causes stress. Now the pandemic is a big, big mountain. So it's okay that we don't always come with positive emotions and a positive mindset. It's a big mountain for us to climb. But this is what the judge does. It judges the pandemic and tells us messages like, you'll be happy when this ends. So on that, I'd like to share in the chat, what is your judge saying about the pandemic? What is the negative message that the judge is sending you along the lines of, you can't be happy because of this pandemic? So just share in the chat what your judge is telling you.
Mm-hmm. Someone's written, it's not fair.
Yeah, right, it's not fair. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kelly, you should be doing more. There's this sense that we should be getting out there and maybe doing something about this, helping people more. Yeah, the uncertainty, Claire. Yeah, it's tough to be with the uncertainty. Yeah.
It's dragging on and on.
Yeah, it's dragging on. Absolutely. Yeah, you won't get a solid foundation for your career, right? I mean, there's the sense that everything's on hold. That's like, maybe if you're a student, it's like, oh, I'm not going to get the education that I wanted. Yeah, a powerlessness, right? That this is something that's imposed on us. It's that we, yeah, we couldn't do anything about it, but now there's this sense of like, I need this to go away before I can get control of my life again. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for sharing those. Great. So the sage view would be that you can enjoy the mountain while you're climbing it. Does it mean we can always do this? No, but even just recognizing that could be an option, that can help us. We'd need to be like the Dalai Lama or 10th Dan and black belt in this mental fitness to be able to always come with that positive mindset. But that's where we're heading. That's where we're pointing. So I'll just take a sip of water. Let's come on to the saboteurs. So the judge, the master, but he does his work with some accomplices. And there's 9 of them: the controller, the hyperachiever, the restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, avoider, victim, and hyper-rational. Let me give you a couple of examples. I won't go through them all, but controller, you might guess how this one self-sabotages. It has thoughts like, if you have this saboteur, the controller saboteur, and I'm careful with the language. The language is like, I have this saboteur, not I am a controller. I have a controller saboteur. It puts it out there and means it's something we can work on. So the thoughts might be, I can and should control the situation so it goes my way. And that can bring anxiety when things are not going your way, and it can bring impatience and anger with other people. That might get you, it might get you temporary results. If you've got a controlling boss, then they can get temporary results. They might get one project to go really well, but the long-term impact is that people they feel like they're being controlled, and they get resentful, and they're not able to tap into their greatest reserves. I'll pick on the hyperachiever as well. I think that's very common. It's one of mine, and in the West in particular, in business, the hyperachiever is it sounds all right, doesn't it, hyperachiever? But it has thoughts of things like, I must be the best at what I do, and the nasty little lie in there is that I'm only worthy as long as I'm performing, and I'm only worthy as long as people think good of me. And the feelings include, I feel most worthy when I'm successful, and the impact is on our peace and happiness. It's fleeting and short-lived. And self-acceptance becomes conditional on performing and being successful. So you might look at this list, you might start to recognize these saboteurs in other people. You might see them in your work colleagues, in your partner, in your family, in your friends. I don't advise you go around pointing them out. This is work to do on yourself, and if you work on yourself and you lower your saboteurs, then it actually has a contagious effect, and others will show up differently when you're around them. Oh, by the way, we all have these to some extent, and none of them are better or worse than any others. Like it would seem hyperachiever sounds like a better saboteur to have than, say, victim, but it's not true. These are equal opportunity destroyers. So here's my results, recent results. So I have stickler, hyper-rational, and hyperachiever as my top ones. These used to be higher, so these used to be in the 8s, but through this work I've brought them down. You might notice my books, so all nicely ordered in color. Each of the saboteurs has strengths associated with it, and the strengths around stickler are sense of order and discipline. And when I did this was very much sage. I loved it. I love this. A lot of people don't like it. My friend has a bookshop. She hates it, but I like this. But you can see that if I take that discipline and sense of order too far, it becomes perfectionism, and that just doesn't help. Let me move on to, so for each of these saboteurs, when you do the assessment, we'll send that link out if you haven't done it already. You get a description of each saboteur. It tells you the characteristics, the thoughts. And yeah, so I'm going to come off the share at that point, and we have another poll. Interested to know what your top saboteur is. So if you've done the assessment, you'll know. If you haven't, have a guess. You've seen the names. We'll pop them up, put the names up again in the poll, and again, it's anonymous. So have a guess if you haven't done the assessment.
Okay, votes are still coming in. I have to say, when I did it, I was really annoyed at the one I came out at. Is that normal?
Are you prepared to share?
I think it was avoider. And I just buried it. Yeah, I'm just really annoyed by that.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? The top one is your avoider and you just buried it.
So you've,
yes.
yeah, you've avoided the results of being an avoider. I like that.
Yeah. Damn it, I'm an avoider.
Yeah. No, I think it's yes, I think the assessment kind of calls us out, and we're like, you have to kind of admit it and go, oh, yeah, that is what I do. There's a lot of freedom in that, actually. I'd encourage you, if you're in a team or in your family, you can get everyone to take it and you can have some fun with it. Because once everyone realizes that we've all got them, you can actually start to bring some lightness to it.
Okay, we're nearly there with the voting. I'm going to close it now so we can all see. There you go. Ooh.
Yeah, right. Hyperachiever and pleaser. These are the two that often come up. Pleaser, we're brought up to, like, you know, don't be a good boy, be a good girl, you know, behave, don't upset people. And hyperachiever, as I say, in the West, is particularly prevalent, that we tie our sense of worth to achievement, to, like, you know, having the fast car or having the good job or success in a project. Okay, great, thank you. So let's come back. And the saboteur interceptor muscle, the first thing, the reason for this assessment is the first part of building that muscle is awareness and noticing. So it's noticing that when you're in some negative emotion, going like, oh, that's one of my saboteurs. You don't have to, it's kind of interesting to try and work out which one it is. You don't have to do that. And once you get into this work, it's enough to just go, oh, wait, I just feel a bit crappy. I'm in some negative emotions and feelings. That's enough to then help you start shift from it. Yeah, just coming back to stickler, like some of those thoughts for me, it would be when I'm hijacked, I get, it's far less often now, but when I'm hijacked by it, the thoughts are like, if I can't do it perfectly, then why bother? Don't do it at all. Or others have poor standards. And that can bring feelings of anxiety, that order and balance will be messed up. And it can bring frustration and disappointment with others, which can cause ongoing anxiety. And imagine, like, if I'm your boss and I bring that all the time, it's going to cause resentment and a sense of being judged, and a resignation that, you know, that you're not being considered, and your values not being considered. So yeah, you know, just sharing the reality for me is like, sometimes when I'm managing, that shows up and I have to be aware of it.
I'll just unmute myself. I've got another question from Richard. Any data on those CEOs and Stanford students and their average results?
Oh, I don't have it. I don't have it. I'm certain though that hyperachiever would be right up there. I'm sure if you're a Stanford student, there's a very high chance you've got hyperachiever as one of your top saboteurs. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody else has very bravely shared theirs as well to everybody. We've got a hypervigilant. Yeah. That's underlying all the other things as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Claire. They do. The saboteurs can do a bit of a merry dance. So my stickler and hyperachiever do this dance where it's like, oh, I'm only good enough if I'm achieving, and when I achieve, it has to be perfect. So I create this trap for myself. Like, things are rarely perfect. So the two work together quite nicely to sabotage me. Okay. So, so in case you hadn't guessed it yet, your saboteurs motivate you, but they motivate you through negative emotions. They push you to do things through fear and stress. Whereas your sage pulls you to do things with positive emotions such as empathy and curiosity, a sense of purpose, creativity. So think for a moment, how have you been motivating yourself typically? And if you're like most people, it's through saboteurs. So the saboteurs, they can generate success, but not happiness in the long run. Whereas the sage generates your highest level of success and sustained happiness. I think of when you watch, if you ever watch football, if you watch England taking penalties, historically, we've not been very good. And you can see when the individuals come up to take the penalty, you can see that they're caught by their saboteurs. It's all like, oh my God, I hope I don't miss. That's what's going through their mind. Whereas you can see with the Germans, when they're taking penalties, there's a calmness, they're clear-headed. And no surprise, they tend to win. And a lot of people I work with, they're successful, but they're not deeply happy. They're not at peace. They're looking to avoid failure, and they have this attitude of, I'll be happy when I get that promotion. I'll be happy when this project is finished and successful. So a question that can come up at this point is, wait a minute though, are negative emotions good for you? Which is an important question, because people feel like it's what gives them their drive, and they think, well, who would I be without that? I just sit on the sofa eating pizza. But it's not true. And to demonstrate that, I'd like to ask a related parallel question, which is pain good for you? And the answer is yeah. Of course, if you put your hand on a hot stove, pain is extremely good for you, because it's that alert that tells you to take it off before you burn yourself. And it's the same with negative emotions. There's a survival strategy there. We used to live in tribes, and the two biggest dangers were getting eaten by something or being kicked out of the tribe, because in both cases you die. You can't survive on your own, and if you get eaten by something, you're dead. And the emotions would help you there. If you're looking out into the forest and you see a rustling in the leaves, and there's a tiger, that fear, the emotion of fear, is useful. It alerts you to the danger and has you run or raise the alarm for the rest of the tribe. And on the other hand, if you upset someone in the tribe and you experience some shame, so you have that negative emotion of shame, it's telling you to make amends. It's telling you to apologize and to put things right, because otherwise you could get kicked out of the tribe. But in modern societies, we don't have those imminent threats of death. But the triggers are still there, and actually there's even more triggers than there used to be. So that survival part of our brain is still operating, and there's more triggers. So we actually have to do more intentional work to build the muscles of mental fitness. So negative emotions, yes, helpful for 1 second as an alert signal, like physical pain. And if we stay there, we're not going to be in a good place to respond. Just like in that example at the beginning, with if your boss asks you to stay late, if you stay in the negative emotions, you're not in the best place to respond to that. And so again, the ability to recognize this, to catch it at that point, is building the saboteur interceptor muscle. And just to be clear, negative emotion, saboteur, these are pretty much one and the same. So that's the saboteur and saboteur interceptor. Do we have any questions at this point? No. Okay,
people might be typing.
So let's come back. Let's move on to say.
Sorry, we have got a question.
Yep.
I realised that I have some of the saboteurs, and I should probably work on it. But what about the environment you're immersed in? You can see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So the environment can bring the triggers, and if you're in an environment with lots of strong saboteurs, then it's more likely to trigger your own. That doesn't mean you can't do work on it. It doesn't mean you can't build your own muscles and deal with it more effectively. Does that answer your question, Jane?
You can unmute if it's quicker than typing.
Yes, great,
No.
Great. Okay, so let's come back. So if we're shifting from the negative emotions of saboteur into sage, interested to know what comes up for you when you think about the emotions and feelings that you would associate with your sage. So for me, there's a sense of joy, there's love, but share in the chat what other emotions come up for you when you think of your sage, when you're at your very best. Yeah, patience is a great one. Yeah, that ability to actually just step back from our immediate reactions and then be with the person or the situation. Yeah, positivity, absolutely. Calm and clear. Yeah, it's like the Jedi in battle. The Jedi in battle is at their most effective when they've got a calm, clear head. And happy. Yeah, it's almost like it's like our default. When saboteurs aren't around, our default is to feel happy and content, satisfied. Yeah, thanks for sharing those. So let's move on. So the sage, it lives in part of the brain that's associated with these positive emotions, peace and calm. Can also look at the big picture. Can actually step out of the weeds and look at the big picture, the forest instead of the trees. And operates from what we call the sage perspective. So the sage perspective is this, that every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift, an opportunity. Can we always see this? Not necessarily. And your saboteurs will tell you, like, this is not the way the world works, this is stupid, it's naive, it's silly, it's dangerous. But just think for a moment about, there'll be times in your life where something's gone wrong. At the time, your judge told you it was bad. And now you look back on it and you think, you know what, that was the best thing that happened because I learned so much. It was the start of a change for me, and you wouldn't have it any other way. I can certainly look back and see that in my life. So even when we're in it, when we're in a situation, we might not be able to see the gift and opportunity. Even just recognizing that some point later we'll find it. That can bring a lot of ease to a situation. And to illustrate this, I want to tell you a story to illustrate the sage perspective. So this is an ancient Chinese parable, and it's about a wise old sage farmer. He lives all the time in his sage, and he owns a stallion. It's a prize stallion. He's very proud of his stallion. And so one day he enters it into a competition in the village, and he wins. He wins the competition. And his friends and neighbors come round with their congratulations, and they tell him what a wonderful thing this is. And the sage old farmer says, who knows what is good and what is bad? And they think, well, that's a little odd, but okay. And a few days later, the thieves in the area, they hear about this prize-winning stallion, and they break in the dead of night and they steal the stallion. And the next day, the neighbors and friends come round and they bring their commiserations, their condolences, and they say, oh, what a terrible thing this is. And the sage farmer says, well, who knows what is good and what is bad? A few days later, the stallion escapes. Strong, proud stallion escapes the thieves. On the way back to the farmer, finds 3 mares and comes back with the mares in tow. And the farmer now has 4 horses. And the friends and the neighbors come round and they bring their congratulations, but they're starting to get a little bit conscious of how the farmer's likely to respond. And of course he says, well, who knows what is good and what is bad? The next week, the son is taming one of the mares, and it rises up, kicks up and throws him off, and he breaks his leg. And the friends and neighbors come round, but this time they don't say too much because the farmer says, who knows what is good and what is bad? a lot happens in this village, very busy village, a lot going on. Because 1 week later, the Imperial Army come round. There's been a war has broken out in the region, and they're rounding up the young men, the fit and able men. Of course, they can't take the farmer's son, so he stays back. He doesn't have to go to war. And you already know the farmer's response is, who knows what is good and what is bad. And there's real wisdom, there's huge wisdom in this story. And you know, that's one thing. If you take away nothing else, take away this story, that you can reflect back on this story in any situation and recognize that you don't know tomorrow or next week or a year down the line how you might see this as a gift or an opportunity. There's something about this farmer that I want to pick up on there. He's a little bit passive. He's just sitting back and he's like waiting for things to change. Whereas in this work, we can actively do something about it. In the moment, we can recognize that we're caught by our saboteurs. We can do some of these PQ reps, the mindfulness-like exercises, and we can engage with empathy and curiosity and laser-focused action. So I want to come to a question like, which perspective is true? Saboteurs will tell you a situation is bad. The sage will tell you it's a gift. So which is true? And the curious thing is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the answer is whichever you believe comes true. If I give you an example of, say you're at work, you're working on a project, the project starts to go wrong. Like it's late, or the customer's not happy. If you stay in negative emotion, like, okay, you get frustrated, that's okay. Notice it, do something about it. But if you stay there, if you stay in frustration, disappointment with other people, stress, that's contagious. The team picks up on it. Is that really the best place to move forward from? You won't come up with the best answers. Whereas if you come with an attitude of learning, of curiosity, of recognizing that this opportunity there's something to learn in it, then that positivity others will pick up on that, and you can come together and come up with the best solution, the best way forward. If you have a spiritual practice or religious practice, you'll notice that this sage perspective is that it's there in the teachings of spiritual practices. All the major religions and spiritual practices have this. And if you don't have that, you can just choose. You can just choose to believe it because it is self-fulfilling. And so at this stage, I'll come off the share again. And whereas earlier we were sharing, what does your judge say about the pandemic? Now, what does your sage say? If your sage looks at the pandemic from a place of like, what's the gift and opportunity? What's there for you? What do you see as the gift for you or your family or your business? So share something in the chat. I've seen it as an opportunity to spend more time with my wife and get closer to my wife. I've seen it as an opportunity to learn new skills online, doing, for instance, presentations to groups of people. Also seen how it's changed. I see Christian saying question standard practice. Yeah, like we've shifted to the way we work in a way that would never have happened without the pandemic. People are working from home. Now I know for a lot of people that's not what they want, but having created that shift, and most companies and leaders see that actually it's not had a negative impact, that now if you ask to work from home, it's hard for them to say no because you've already demonstrated that it can work. Yeah, good for the environment, James. I'm passionate about that, and it's really bringing attention to, for me, like the first thing I thought at the start of lockdown was the planet's breathed a sigh of relief. Yeah, Mother Nature sending us to our rooms, putting us on the naughty step. Yeah, I like that. Cool. So that's the sage. Any questions at this stage? No? Okay.
No, can't see any.
Great. So let's move on to the third muscle. So I want to challenge you. We haven't met. Well, I've met a couple of you, but I want to challenge you that you're not in control of your own mind. Because if you were, would you command it to wake you up in the middle of the night worrying about things you can't control? Would you command it to have you get into arguments with loved ones that you know will have long-term consequences? Would you command it to have you feel stressed out? So we can build our ability to command our mind. And the way we do it is through these PQ reps. So what we did at the start, that exercise with focusing on our physical sensations. If I want to do, look, I've got a prop. If I want to build my bicep, I can lift weights, and the more weights I lift, the more I can build it. Obviously, in real life, I can lift like way more than this. And these PQ reps, they're 10-second mental muscle reps. And let me give you one more. Bring two fingertips together. I'll just come off the share so you can see what I'm doing. Bring two fingertips together. Bring all your attention to the sensations between the fingertips. Let go of any thoughts you might be having. Just feel the sensation so you can feel the ridges of your fingertips. And this, just doing that, will be calming your survival brain and engaging your sage. And look at the beauty of that. You can do that anywhere. You can be in a meeting and you can do that. Let me just come back here. And there's many ways to do this, and you can do them with your eyes closed, your eyes open. You can do them when you're moving. You can do them when you're sitting. Hundreds of different ways to do them. And so you can adapt and you can use them in the situation. When you feel hijacked by your saboteurs, you can find a PQ rep that will work for you wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And yeah, imagine if you do this over time, imagine how strong your self-command muscle can build and your ability to shift from saboteur to sage. If you do mindfulness or meditation, brilliant. They definitely help to build your self-command muscle. Carry on. And I'd invite you to maybe look at doing these reps at other times, because what can happen with mindfulness and meditation is we have a time of the day that we do it. And then the rest of the day, we don't have a mechanism for helping us move from saboteur to sage. So another question that comes up, is it really possible to just shift from saboteur to sage, even in tough challenges? And the answer is yes, but just like climbing the hills, it depends on how strong your mental muscle is. The stronger it is, the faster and deeper you can switch. Okay, so let me, those are the three muscles. Let me just summarize for you the simplicity of this system. It goes like this. If you're feeling negative emotions, that's your saboteurs and your judge. So stop, notice it. Do some PQ reps to quiet the saboteurs and activate the sage part of your brain. Then assume the sage perspective that every problem can be converted into a gift and opportunity. And you can generate that gift by using sage powers like empathy for yourself and others, getting really curious about what's going on in a situation or with someone else, brainstorming or going into clear-headed, laser-focused action. And I want to share this as well. Lasting positive change, just like with physical fitness, requires muscle building. It requires habit. You can get the insights from the saboteur assessment, or from reading a book, or from just being here today. You get some insights, hopefully you have. But what really makes the difference long term is building that muscle. So having a habit of building those muscles on a daily basis. Everyone knows that experience. If you go to a workshop, you go to a training, it's brilliant. You come out of it, you think it's fantastic. You're going to change the way you do everything. And then a few weeks later, you're not doing it and you can barely remember whether you actually went to the training. Just lastly, this is universally applicable. I mentioned at the beginning, performance, happiness, well-being, and relationships. but it's also applicable to maintaining a healthy diet and your physical fitness, effective parenting, career planning, planning for your next step. Really good for conflict management, understanding your saboteurs and other people's and how they battle against each other. Being more creative. If you come from a sage place, you're more creative. And the best leaders have very strong mental muscles. So productivity, high performance teams. If you bring this into your teams, as I was saying earlier, if you have everyone take the assessment and you talk about it, you can have a huge impact on your productivity and happiness, and much more. I want to come off the slides again for another poll, Louise. So this is the one on, want to ask now, having heard that you can make progress on your mental fitness and the impact that can have, how motivated are you to actually take action on that as a result of being here today? I'm going to say about the same.
Yeah. Yes, one of my colleagues was messaging me during that saying, oh, maybe our team should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a good point for me to mention there is there's a workshop I can run with teams. So if that's of interest to anyone in their teams, then do get in touch.
Yes, we weren't sure about just doing it on our own, whether that would necessarily have the right vibe or not.
Yeah. No, there's a fun workshop where we can dig into it.
Right then, I think most people have voted. Let's end the polling. There you go.
Great, excellent. Yeah, I mean, that's the message that I want you to take away, is whether it doesn't have to be with me, but to take away that message that there are things you can do. You can absolutely improve your mental fitness. And so how do we do that? You can take if you haven't done it already, take the saboteur assessment. You look through the results and any insights that come to you, make some notes. You might have a couple of post-its you put on your screen, on your wall, just to remind you of to pay attention to when your saboteurs show up. You can remember the Stallion Story, apply the sage perspective. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity. You can read the book. It's a good book. Read and apply that. And you can start PQ reps. I've given you a few today. If you read the book or look online, you'll find some more. Start a habit, a daily habit doing that, and use it during challenges. I'm noticing the time. Apologies if we go a minute or two over. I'm just about there. My gift to you, just for being here, is if you'd like a one-to-one call with me to understand your saboteurs, how they lie to you, and leave with some insights, then I'll be very happy to do that. There's a link here that we will send out. It's complimentary, no strings. The assessment. And there's further options. So there's a 6-week program that goes with this that I can offer to clients. There's an app that goes with it that introduces exercises every day. There's weekly videos, and it helps you build all 3 of these muscles. And it's 15 minutes a day. You don't have to take a huge amount of time out of your day. And you'll work in a pod with other people doing the same 6-week program, and that really helps to deepen the learning. And like I say, I'd love to talk to organizations, teams about bringing this work in and helping you be more happy and productive. So finally, there's my contact details. Feel free to reach out to me in any way that works for you. I found out recently on LinkedIn, you can press that little button on the app and then scan the QR code there. So feel free to do that. Oh, we're bang on time, actually.
We are, aren't we? That's quite impressive.
happy to take any questions now, if people want to hang around. If we can do that, Louise.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, no problem.
And if you have to go, thanks for being here. I hope you got something from it.
Got some thank yous coming in. Yeah, it was very interesting. I like the thought of the sort of daily mental exercise. That's, yeah, a really nice takeaway, actually. And again, like unearth my avoider personality, get some post-its written.
Yeah, and you know, it's easier than the physical exercise. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't need any equipment. True. It's only 15 or 20 minutes a day, and it's shown over 6 weeks that the changes can be seen in an MRI scan. You can actually see the changes in the neural connections and the grey matter in the brain.
Brilliant.
And there's a comment here from Myla about imperfections and strengths. Each of these saboteurs, the saboteur itself doesn't really serve us, but they tend to go with strengths. So if you have a pleaser saboteur, then you have real strengths of empathy and being able to build connection and warmth.
Anything question from Christian?
Yeah. I'd love to hear more about how you can. I'm going to come off the stop the share. I say we'll circulate my contact details. So I'm doing that. The chat. Oh, there it is. I'd love to hear more about how you can implement the Sage Power. Yeah, it's covered in. It's not covered in the Saboteur workshop, but it is covered in the 6-week program. That's part of one of the muscles. I'll give you an example. So the Innovate Sage Power. There's a power game that goes with that, which some of you might be familiar with. It comes from improvisation, theatre improv. It's the yes and game, which is a way to brainstorm creatively, where you're always looking for the good in what someone said. Even if you disagree with what they say, you're looking for the 10% that you do agree with, and that's what you start with. You go, what I like about what you're saying is, and then the 10% or 20%, and then you add to it, and you add your idea, and then the other person goes, what I like about what you're saying is, and then they add their part, and you can go a bit crazy with it. If you've ever done good brainstorming, you know, you can just like throw out crazy ideas. There's no judgment at that stage. You're just creating a volume of ideas, and then you come back later with in your Sage mode, and you look at them with discernment as to which is useful. But yeah, you know, that yes and game is very much Sage, coming from your Sage of like, yeah, I'm actively looking for what is good in what the other person is saying. And each of the Sage powers has a game that goes with it. There's also a physicality to it. So my curiosity physicality is sort of like a Sherlock Holmes with a magnifying glass. My laser focused action might be more like shoulders back, chest out. These can be quite powerful. But yeah, that's an inherent part of the 6-week program.
Any more questions, anybody?
I've got one from Richard here. Ever looked at the Enneagram? There is quite a lot of overlap with Enneagram. I'm not trained in it, but there's quite a lot of overlap in the different Enneagram types and saboteurs. A lot of this is really pointing to all these different assessments. They point to some underlying truth. And it's not like I'm saying what I presented today is like, this is the way to do it. But what I like about this system is there's a simplicity to it. A physical board game you can play. I don't quite understand the question, Myla. Are you willing to come on and clarify that? Or I can have a guess. Oh, right, no. Yeah, okay. The yes and game is just a game you play by talking. So if someone's got an idea for a new product and they're talking about it, you can say, oh, what I like about that new product idea is the way you're talking about the user interface. But you might not like anything else about it, but you can say, I like that part of it. And I'm thinking from the functional point of view, we could add this. And they might say, wow, what I like about that is that function sounds really useful. And then they add something on top. So it's just a discussion game. Okay.
Any more?
Anything else?
That's given food for thought, hasn't it? I like the yes and.
Yeah, it's great. It really is. And you can do it anytime, anywhere. Like do it with your partners, your family, your colleagues. You don't have to turn it into that game, but just in your mind, you're going like, what is it that I like about what they're saying? And lead with that. People love it. People love it. If you go, you know what, I really like what you're saying there. I like this part of what you're saying.
It means you're listening to it, doesn't it? Which is brilliant.
Yeah, then they're in a much more positive place to receive whatever you want to add on top.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, fantastic.
Okay.
Thanks. I can see the great value in the practical suggestions. Thank you, Christian. Great. Anybody else before we wrap up?
Okay. Looks like we're about there.
I think we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
So, Jon, thank you so much. That's been really, really interesting, and actually a very kind of calm and centering, peaceful hour. Actually, a lovely way of delivering the information. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. No, really useful info. And to everybody else, we've been recording this, and we'll share around the resources and things that Jon mentioned as well, including contact details, etc. So feel free to get in touch.